The Cimmerians, an Eastern Iranic nomadic people, who once inhabited Caspian and the Caucasus steppes, in the area corresponding to present-day southern Russia, were known for their ferocity in battle. A numerous, well-armed, highly mobile military force that constituted a serious threat to every city, town, and village in their way. They burst onto the historical stage in the 9th and 8th centuries BC, surprising the established civilizations of the Near East, with their ability to defeat powerful city-states. They conquered and looted until they were defeated themselves. But their legacy was short-lived, as they were eventually defeated by another powerful tribe, the Scythians, a tribe that went on to put the final nail to the coffin of their legacy. And although their time in history was a brief one, they left their mark on the world as one of the greatest warrior tribes of the ancient world. Despite their significance, not much is known about their culture and their way of life, as the Cimmerians did not leave us any written records. Much of the information that we have about them is from the Assyrian records of the 8th to 7th centuries BC, and from Greco-Roman authors from the 5th century BC and later. The first written sources that mention the Cimmerians are to be found in the archives of the Assyrian Empire and the personal library of King Ashurbanipal, as letters, intelligence reports, and religious texts in the form of cuneiform inscribed clay tablets, which date from late 8th to the early 7th centuries. The Cimmerians are recorded since they came into conflict with the Eurasian and Assyrian empires during this period. They are mentioned in Assyrian cuneiform sources as Gimmerai, Gimmera and Gamera, and in Akkadian language texts as Gimmeriah. Despite all these sources, they still belong partly to history, and partly to the legends. They are described in the 8th century BC Homer's Odyssey, as a people living beyond the Oceanus, in a land permanently deprived of sunlight, at the edge of the world, and close to the entrance of Hades. Gaius Valerius Flaccus, a Roman poet, writing in the 1st century AD, writes, "Known long since to the unforgetting seer there lies, where afar the land slopes down to silence, and Stygian night, the dove of the Cimmerians, a region that the Olympians know not, a land dark and desolate gloom, where the sun never drives his flaming car, and Jupiter sends not the star-appointed seasons." Another Roman poet named Ovid, who lived several years earlier than Valerius Flaccus, described the Cimmerians' land in a very similar way, adding to it, that in the middle of it, the sleep and death themselves made their home. It is generally accepted that they lived in the steppes north of the Caucasus, with the Volga River forming their western boundary. A land that is part of the region, which has long been a breeding ground for pastoral horse-borne warrior groups, ever since the expansion and migration of the Indo-European tribes. But they seem to have been the chief occupants of the Tauric Chersonesus, at the time when the Greeks first commenced their permanent settlements on those coasts, in the 7th century BC. The numerous localities which bore their name, even in the time of Herodotus, after they had ceased to exist as a nation, as well as the tombs of the Cimmerian kings near the Tigris, sufficiently attest to this fact. This opinion has been accepted by the majority of scholars in modern times. Archaeologists have logically concluded that the finds dating from before the appearance of the Scythians, in southern Russia and the Crimea, must be of Cimmerians. It has been identified that a nomadic culture flourished in this region, during the period of transition from the Bronze to the Iron Age, as that of the Cimmerians. Two chronological phases have been recognized in the culture of this region, the Chernogorivka and the Novocherkassk. Archaeologically speaking, the Cimmerians must be represented by the vast South Russian catacomb culture from the Bronze Age, whereas the Proto-Scythians were supposed to be responsible for the timber grave culture. And when the timber grave culture replaced the catacomb culture, it was supposed that a counterpart had been found, confirming the expulsion of the Cimmerians by the Scythians, as recorded by Herodotus. Furthermore, it is odd that with any degree of certainty, no one has been successful in demonstrating the presence of the Cimmerians, from an archaeological point of view, either in the southern parts of Russia, nor elsewhere. And so the confidence in this classical tradition was finally shaken by the fact that no artifacts of the Novocherkassk type have been found in the Transcaucasian, Near Eastern, or Anatolian regions, connected with later Cimmerian activity, after being expelled from the Pontic steppe. Only the artifacts of early Scythian type have been found in those areas, who came there soon after expelling the Cimmerians from their homeland. In terms of their origins, there is no universally agreed upon theory regarding the origins of the Cimmerians. However, these are some of the most widely accepted theories regarding the origins of the Cimmerians. Indo-European origin. The most widely accepted theory is that the Cimmerians were an Indo-European people who migrated from the Pontic-Caspian steppe region, northeast of the Black Sea, and settled in the area around the Black Sea, possibly around the 8th century BC. This belief is heavily based on similarities between the names of some Cimmerian tribes and those of other Indo-European peoples, as well as on place names and other linguistic evidence from the region. The nomadic pastoral lifestyle of the Cimmerians was also similar to that of other Indo-European peoples in the area. Recent genetic studies have shown us that there was a significant genetic shift in the region around the Black Sea, around 8th century BC, which could be attributed to the migration of Indo-European peoples into the area. Taken together, all these makes a very strong evidence in support of this theory. Iranian origin. This theory is not as widely accepted as the Indo-European origin theory. But looking at the fact the Cimmerians cannot be differentiated archaeologically from the Scythians, it is not unwise to speculate about their Iranian origin. Scholars have pointed out the cultural similarities between the Cimmerians and other Iranian peoples, such as the Scythians, including their use of similar weapons, clothing, and burial practices. Even Herodotus suggested that the Cimmerians were closely related to the Scythians and other Iranian peoples. This has led many scholars to believe that the Cimmerians may have migrated from the Iranian plateau to the north, rather than from the Pontic-Caspian steppe region to the west. Local origin. This theory suggests that the Cimmerians may have been an indigenous people who had inhabited the region for a long time before the arrival of the Indo-European migrants. This theory is a result of lack of clear historical records from this period, and whatever few that we do have are often fragmentary and incomplete, which makes it difficult to trace the origins of the Cimmerians with any certainty. This has led some historians to suggest that the Cimmerians may have emerged as a distinct group within the Black Sea region, rather than being migrants from elsewhere. The next widely held opinion that the Cimmerians were of Thracian origin depends in fact only on the confused information of Strabo. And this is what he wrote in his book Geographica. In all other references, however, Strabo and other authors treated Trarez and Cimmerians as separate people. This theory has been criticized recently, and so the scholars don't take this theory seriously anymore. Although Cimmerians were known for their military prowess and their ability to defeat whole kingdoms and city-states, that comes in its way. But as the Scythians, who lived in the region east of the Volga River, began to migrate into the Cimmerians' territory, the Cimmerians, in the face of the Scythians' threat, were in discord. There arose a disagreement among the Cimmerians. The royal tribe wanted to stay and fight, while the rest thought it best to evacuate the territory. The royal tribes in despair resolved to divide themselves into two groups, and perished by each other's hand near River Tigris, where the sepulchres of the kings were yet shown in the time of Herodotus. The mass of the Cimmerians fled, and abandoned their country to the Scythians. And the Scythians, on their arrival, took possession of the deserted land. And so this was the end of the Cimmerians on the Pontic steppe. We will talk about the fate of the Cimmerians after being expelled in the next upcoming video. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you like this video, then make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. And thanks for watching.